What is up, Light Fighters? Welcome back to the channel. As always, this is Light Fighters Anonymous, the show where the tactics are made up, the techniques do not matter, and the only procedure is do not get caught looking like an idiot. As Light Fighters, radios give us the superpower to talk over very long distances and sometimes kind of secure. However, just like the number one rule of a Light Fighter is look cool, of course, the number one rule when it comes to radio is don't sound fucking stupid on the radio.
Eagle 2, this is Light Fighter 1-1. How copy, over.
Contact!
Contact!
1-1, this is Eagle 2, good copy, set traffic, over.
All right, guys, what is up? Thanks for hanging through the intro, guys. If you know me, you know I really don't like radios, but that's because they get a little technically mumbo-jumbo-y for me, and I didn't get the right kind of autism to really just dive deep into these little radios. However, if somebody does hand me a working radio, I am pretty good at having a functional conversation on the radio, and I've had some experience in my time doing lots of milsim, and as a professional who does carry radio, working with an integrated dispatch system, I'm pretty good at not sounding stupid on the radio. And I'm here to give you some tips, because the truth of the matter is, as Light Fighters, we all understand the potential and the power of having a radio and being able to talk over long distances. They're very cheap, the barrier to entry is very low. However, what really stops us from using it a lot is, one, they're not always necessary. Sometimes we can just shout to our buddies. But two, we don't know what to say, or we don't know how to say it, or we don't want to sound stupid, because when we queue up this mic, as you know, you're now broadcasting to the world. And the last thing any grown-ass man wants to do is look dumb. So I'm here to help you with that. It's no big deal. Radios do not have to be scary. So the first thing I would like to tell you about radio is, in general, when it comes to radio, less is more. And now I'm talking about, as a Light Fighter, having less radios in your patrol is sometimes more, and then also when you're utilizing radios, less is more. So let's talk about quantity of radios in a patrol really fast, and then let's get back into talking, not sounding stupid. But you don't need every single member of your patrol to have a radio. Oftentimes that's redundant. Typically, I like to have like the patrol leader with an RTO. They both have radios. Maybe the RTO has some backup and some extra batteries. And then if you've got fire team leaders or designations for that, or security team members, each of those teams should have a radio, but not every person on those teams need a radio, because they're not gonna split up. Our superpower as human beings is face-to-face, clear, concise, and secure communications. So when you can default to face-to-face communications, don't use the radio. Not everything needs to be said on the radio. Other than that, so that gets into not sounding dumb. Don't brief your whole story on a radio. Just remember, when you're talking on the radio, less is more. Because if you can say it face-to-face, it should just be said face-to-face. Also, that gets us into radio effectiveness, guys. These do allow us to talk very far, but if you start getting into the mumbo jumbo and the technicalities, you're going to understand that radios do have limitations. Whether you're on UHF frequencies and you're in a city, or you're trying to now transmit UHF over flat water, you got to understand the differences that frequency travels. If you're using something cool like ham radio or high frequency stuff, you probably understand how that bounces through the atmosphere, and then you're now talking to China. I don't get it, but apparently it's real. But either way, your radios have limited effectiveness, and you need to understand that effectiveness because that really affects how your communication gets through and if people can even hear you. Other than that, like I said, less is more. Minimize chatter on the radio. You don't need to say a lot of just other stuff. I am very bad speaker, actually. I have the gift of gab, and it's easy for me to talk, but I fill my dead spaces with a lot of ums and ers and uhs, and sometimes I even say crap like I'm saying right now just to fill space. Don't do that on the radio. The way to talk on the radio, the best way to avoid this, is think about exactly what you're going to say before you click the mic and actually say it. Think up your little short message, and if you have a longer message and you have trouble remembering it all, write it down. That's completely okay. That's why you're supposed to carry a pen and a paper at all times as a Light Fighter. So minimize your chatter, think about what you're going to say, and then avoid really long transmissions if you can. The shorter, easier to memorize, easier to transcribe and decrypt messages are always better. So don't tell a long story, try to avoid the long messages, avoid your chatter. Think about what you're going to say before you write it down and default to shorter messages. When we start using long transmissions that have important information, because we're only transmitting important information, right? You've got somebody on the other end who's got to transcribe this, write it down. If you're encrypted at all, they've got to write it down and then decrypt it. So shorter messages are typically always better. All right, now a couple other pretty good rules to just default to and follow when you're using radios as a light fighter is what we call in the fire service is no good news, which means you don't get on the radio and say, hey, everything's going great, just checking in. You do that when you have specific comms windows, and your comms windows are your insurance, but we'll get into that. No good news is kind of like, hey, you only transmit if you have some conditions have changed. So in the fire service, we call it a CAN report, conditions, actions, needs. So if the conditions have changed and we have needs, we can give a CAN report, but that's not good news. We don't say, oh, the conditions are great and I have all the tools I need and we're doing just dandy, just checking in. That would be a good news report, so we avoid those. It's just not necessary to fill the airwaves with that. Now, in the military, you do things like a salute report when you make contact with an enemy, or you give a detailed report on what you've seen or saw. Now, that isn't good news, that's bad news, so that's appropriate. Now, when do you deliver good news on the radio? Well, that's typically your communications windows. Now, your PACE plan, P-A-C-E, if I can put that up there, can include communications windows when you are just due to say, hey, hire, this is me. I'm checking in to make sure our radios are still good and I haven't walked too far. Can you still hear me? And you maybe can do those at midnight every day, or you can do those every 3 hours, or you can do those at the bottom of every hour, something like that. But those comms windows are the times where you just kind of check in real quick, say, hey, I'm here. Is this system still working in case we need it? And that's a comms window. All right, so some other rules to follow, guys. When you are talking about letters or numbers, we are going to use the military NATO phonetic alphabet. That begins with Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. That's that one. It's not the one the cops use with the Alex, Brian, Caleb, David. Those are just a list of their ex-boyfriends' names. Also, when you get to numbers, numbers are pretty much just how you pronounce them in English. They have some weird intricacies, but you'll get by saying your normal stuff. I know it's just 1, 2, they say tree instead of 3, they say four instead of 4, and then I think niner instead of 9. Everything else is pretty much just English, and you'll get by, or you won't have any confusion there. All right, guys, when you start actually talking on a radio, there's going to be a couple different methods that you're going to follow, and you're going to want to follow, obviously, you're going to want to know what method of communication that the people you're trying to reach are utilizing. Now, the main methods of communications on radio are plain speak, you can have encoded or Prowords, or you can have full-blown encrypted communications. Now, plain speak is just some fancy radio nerd term for talking completely normal, and that is oftentimes what most people default to on the radio. It's just queuing in and giving your message in plain, clear, concise English, and then letting go of the button. Now, TIN codes and codes are Prowords. TIN codes are something that cops use, like 10-4 or 10-8 or 10 whatever. Those all have specific meanings, and those are kind of like Prowords that we're going to talk about here shortly. What Prowords are, or procedure words, are specific words that have specific meanings that convey a little bit more information than saying something longer-winded, like I just did. Finally, the last method I mentioned was full-blown encryption. Now that can be, you can talk parcel tongue if you want, or you can use a code book or an SOI or CEO and I, like this code book right here, which I have a video about, I'll link it up there. Or you can use digital encryption that sounds like beeps and boops and static to the human ear, but is somehow conveying text through the sky. It's very cool. So to start a conversation on the radio, you need to know a couple things. You need to know, one, your call sign is good, or you can make one up on the fly, or just use your name. 2, the call sign of the person you're calling, or you can just open up with, hey, anyone on this net. Ham radios, guys call it QC or something weird, and when it comes to light fighter military communications, typically we'll page any station or a specific station. So I don't have anybody hanging out with me today, so a typical call from me to hire would always sound like, you, this is me. Now we always go, hey you, this is me. We never go, hey, this is me, are you there? We don't do that. So a call to hire command from light fighter, which will be the call sign I'm just gonna demo with today, would sound like this. I'd go click in, I'd say, hire, this is light fighter. How copy, over. Now, how copy is just a way to say, how do you read me, or how do you understand me? And they can say, oh, you're loud and clear. Or they can say, I got you 5 and 5 by 5. Or they can say, you're coming in garbled and stupid right now. Move to a hill. Either way, that how copy is a pro word, and it'll be on our list here shortly. But what I did is always start with, hey, you, this is me. That is important. In any radio communications ever, whether you're a cop, you're a firefighter, you're an EMS, or you're just a light fighter, minuteman, armed protected citizen, whatever, the way to use radios is, hey, you, this is me. So we always start like that. If you don't know the exact call sign of the person you're calling, you can say, any station, this is light fighter, how copy, over. Or instead of how copy, I could say, any station, this is light fighter, radio check, over. All right, so let's talk about pro words or procedure words. Now, pro words are just short words that convey a little bit broader information. The most common pro words you've probably ever heard and everyone's very familiar with are over and out. Now, over and out are typically, obviously, you know, they're an end of a communication. Now, they do have two separate meanings. Over means I am done talking and I am generally waiting for a reply. Out means I am done talking and I am leaving this net and I am no longer having a conversation with you. So a big old joke that I've always heard is you don't out your hire. But either way, over and out are probably the most common pro words you have always heard. But there are many, many, many more pro words that you should probably get to know when you're using, you know, military style, light fighter style communications. All right, so let's move to a big list of pro words that I think are pretty good. Now, this isn't going to be a full comprehensive list, but I'm going to try and get all the ones that I dug up and I thought were the most effective. Obviously, the ones I just already used, call signs aside, are, first one is this is. This is a transmission from a station whose designator immediately follows. So I say this is, and then I say my call sign. So that designates who is calling or who's sending this message. Also, I said how copy. How copy is used to say, how do you read me or how do you understand me? Am I understandable on your end? You can also use radio check. That is completely appropriate. That means I'm here checking my radio. Obviously, we discussed over and out and the differences between those. Now, when you started a conversation with somebody, you don't have to constantly say over, over, over.
You gotta finish your sentence. Over.
That's it. My sentence is over.
Your sentence is what, Brian? Over.
My sentence is... Wait a minute. I have to say over even if the sentence ends with the word over?
Ends with the word what, Brian? Over.
Oh, I see the wire.
You see the wire what? Over.
Over!
Once you've started a conversation in plain speak, if you're not using encoded or pro words or TIN codes or encrypted communications, you don't need to always say that over. It's just kind of implied when you stop talking. If you're having a plain speak conversation, you can start omitting that over. Again, if you're having a conversation and it's been going on with the same guy, you don't need to always say, hey, you, this is me, before you say everything. Once I've hailed my recipient, saying, hire, this is light fighter, how copy, over, and then light fighter has replied, and then hire's replied to me, I don't have to say, hey, hire, I'm still talking to you every time. I don't have to say their call sign every time. All right, so the next pro word on our list is message or message follows. That just tells you that something important is coming. So sometimes you'll hail somebody and you'll say message follows over, and they'll know that, oh, shoot, they're trying to get my attention and they've got something important to say that's going to be, and maybe I'll have to write it down. Also, be advised is another pro word to say, hey, be advised, we got another important message that could be coming down the hatch. It's got a little bit more precedence over routine traffic. Unknown station is something you can say when you're talking to somebody. You can call them unknown station. That is just a pro word that says, I don't recognize you, and you may need to, one, re-identify, or two, acknowledge using your authentication table. You might have to authenticate. Priority, or if you say priority traffic, that is, again, elevating your traffic above routine. So you can say, hey, hire, this is light fighter, priority traffic follows, over. And that would say, okay, everyone else with their regular chatter needs to shut up for now because this guy has something very important to say. The next two are your waits. There are two different waits. You've got wait one and you've got wait out. Wait one is wait just one moment. Wait out is wait a little bit. It's going to take me some time to figure this out. That's basically the only difference between the two. If you say wait one, it'll just be a quick second. You figure out your compass bearing. You'll be right back on the radio. If you say wait out, you're like, I might have to go check on that. I might have to walk a couple miles and figure that out. Acknowledge. So acknowledge says, hey, do you understand what I sent you? You can also say read back or say again. So acknowledge, simply, do you acknowledge my message? Do you understand? Do you copy? So break. Break is utilized when you have a really long transmission that you need to stop in the middle, so let people catch up in their writing, or believe it or not, if your capacitors start discharging in your radio, your transmission power starts dropping off the longer you press down this button. So if you've got a very long transmission to send with very specific grid coordinates, it's good to put a break in the middle of it. And just saying break once means that short break in my transmission, I'm about to talk again, so don't talk over me. Now, break, break, break is how you will break into somebody else's conversation. Say they are having a very long-winded conversation, or they're using a plain speak conversation, and you now need to break into it. You can say, break, 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 this is Light Fighter with priority traffic. Something like that. Radio silence and radio silence lifted. Obviously, you can say radio silence, and that means, hey guys, stop using your radios, and then radio silence lifted, and that means, hey, you can start using your radios. Relay to and relay from, if you're having difficulty hailing somebody, or if you're listening to your radio and you can hear one station trying to call another station that you know you can talk to both of them, you can then do what's called a relay. So if you heard a message from higher and they wanted to reach Hillbilly over here, and Hillbilly's not answering higher, but you're hearing them both, you can say, higher command, this is Light Fighter, would you like me to relay the message to Hillbilly? And they'd say, sure. And then you'd say, Hillbilly, Hillbilly, this is Light Fighter, again, you, this is me, relay from higher command, message follows, blah, 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 blah. So that can be, and that's how you use your relay pro words. Obviously, affirmative means yes, negative means no, correct means you are correct. Roger means I've received your last transmission, I understand your last transmission, and Wilco means I have received your last transmission and I will comply. You don't need to use Roger and Wilco because it's redundant. It's like saying over and out. You don't do it. It's dumb. It makes you sound stupid on the radio. All right, some more pro words that just get into being specific or corrective on messages are simple. Figures or figures follow means you're about to talk about numbers. It's like, hey, figures follow means get ready for numbers. I read back means I'm reading back to you what you've said to me. I spell means I'm going to spell something out. The next word is going to be spelled phonetically because for some reason we can't understand it. If I say more to follow, that means hold up, this isn't the whole message, there is more to come. If I tell you to read back, that means, hey, will you read back what I've sent so far or thus far so I understand that you have it this far. If I tell you to say again, I'm essentially asking you to repeat your last message. Now, we do not say repeat because that's a bad word on the radio when you're a light fighter, armed prepared citizen, or in the military because the word repeat has to do with fire missions and people shooting explosives into the sky. So we don't say repeat, we say again. And that says, will you say again your last transmission? You can also say speak slower. That just means, hey, will you speak slower so I can understand you a little bit better? And then we can also say, I understand all before this word, or all before that word, or what was the word before, or word after this certain phrase. So if I understood the whole message up to the word tree, and then I didn't understand anything after, I would say again, all after tree. Or let's say again, they just said one word about, a descriptor about the tree. Something like green tree, was it green tree or was it tall tree? I would say again, word before tree. And he says, oh, I send tall. And I'm like, okay, the tall tree. So those are just a little corrective. Also, if you do say something and you need to make a correction, you just say correction. That is the official pro word for I made a mistake. This is now correct information. Say correction to last transmission, blah, 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 blah. If you start talking to something and then all of a sudden you realize you don't need to be talking to this person, you can just hit them with the old disregard. So oftentimes I get dispatched at work and they say, hey, Medic 906, we need you to respond to this. Oh, wait, this is for the police. Disregard. And click. And I'm like, okay, it's not for me. We disregard. And then finally, if you are saying something and it's important and you're worried they didn't get it, you can say, I say again. That's just like saying, say again. Please read back. You can say, I say again, an important message. So if you're like, oh my God, I say again, we're being overrun. That'd be a good one. All right, some general jargon, guys. Obviously, it's good to know people's call signs, but if you don't know call signs, you can call people stations. Or if you watch Generation Kill, they call people victors, and that just means vehicles because they were vehicle born. But you can say all stations or any stations. All stations being, hey, everybody, or any station, that's, hey, somebody. General just jargon, clicks, kilometers. Lima Charlie means loud and clear. Sometimes you're talking fire mission, stuff like Delta Hotel can mean direct hit. Mics or minutes, Oscar Mike is on the move. Saying you stepped on is meaning you talked over somebody on the radio, or you're getting stepped on is someone's talking over you. Now, there are a ton of pro words or procedure words you can be utilizing on the radio, and they are kind of the best way to convey information and not sound like a total rookie while you do it. I understand this stuff can be seems complex, but it is not. The best way to learn this stuff is to just get some friends and some practice in. You don't even need friends that are close to you because radios talk over long distance. So you can practice this stuff over the internet and Discord. You can practice this stuff locally with your buddies on the radio, or you can just practice by yourself talking to nobody or the demons in your head like I do. Guys, again, this was how not to sound stupid on the radio. My channel is entirely demonetized, so you have to watch less ads. Please like, subscribe, share this video. The comment section's the fastest way to call me an idiot, guys. I hope you didn't learn a damn thing. Shout out to your mothers. Respect.